HRN listeners. As we celebrate our 15th year, we are deepening our commitment to giving voice to the next generation of food systems storytellers, and we need your help. Our internship and fellowship programs help activate new possibilities for underrepresented and underestimated young people through experiential journalism, audio engineering, and production training. Through these unique programs, HRN helps food equity stewards build essential workforce readiness skills that expand their potential and foster economic mobility. Please consider supporting these critical programs. And with a minimum donation, you can be entered to win a dinner for two at an amazing restaurant in one of 8 cities and tickets to a concert at a great venue in one of those cities. We have incredible partners across the country who have donated, as they also share our passion for helping to educate the next generation of food systems storytellers. Check out heritageradionetwork.org/15 to donate and enter to win today. That's heritageradionetwork.org/15 to donate and enter to win today. And make sure you donate before March 31st. Thank you.
I'm Sam Edwards. I'm third generation Cure Master from S. Wallace Edwards & Sons in Surrey, Virginia. We support the Heritage Radio Network because we believe in the cause and what they're doing. They're supporting family-raised livestock, small family farms, certified humane, pasture-raised, antibiotic-free. Basically, we take the products from Heritage Food USA and make them into Serrano-style hams, prosciutto-style hams, bacon, sausage, like my grandfather did. You can find us at surreyfarms.com or virginiatraditions.com.
I bought your pepper, I bought your salt.
All right, it's 1 o'clock on a Thursday, and you're tuned in to the Heritage Radio Network. We're bringing you the Farm Report live from Bushwick, Brooklyn, in the back of Roberta's at 261 Moore Street. And we are on the line today with Seth Jacobs. How are you, Seth?
Hey, Aaron.
Good to have you on the show today.
Nice to be here. Nice to hear you.
Yeah, you too. It's been a while.
Yeah.
So Seth runs a farm up in Washington County, Slack Hollow Farm, with his wife, Martha Johnson, and their grow crew. Seth, why don't you kind of set the scene a little bit for our listeners and tell us about the farm, just like the kind of brief history, what kind of growing you guys are doing, and give us a general lay of the land.
Yeah, well, we're in Washington County, and for those of you who are not familiar with the upstate geography, we're straight up the Hudson River, between Hudson River and Vermont, and a little bit west of Rutland. And we have a small farm. We grow vegetables on about 15 acres, and we have a quarter acre of ground under plastic in high tunnels, and that's where we're farming right now, is under the high tunnels, and selling fresh greens and crops out of storage as well. And our markets are direct retail at the Troy Farmers Market, and we wholesale to the Honest Weight Food Co-op in Albany, which is the biggest natural food store in Albany.
So you guys are growing year-round, and a high tunnel that's essentially like a greenhouse, or how is that different from a greenhouse?
Yeah, high tunnel it's kind of a lower tech. A greenhouse tends to refer to something where there's a lot of climate control, a lot of energy inputs and so on. High tunnels just refer to basically ground that's covered in plastic.
Okay.
And so it's a simpler approach, and we grow in the ground, not on benches or anything. So it's pretty much the natural world, just with the one factor where you've excluded the precipitation, and you have some degree of warming from the sun.
Yeah, I definitely remember sneaking in there a couple of afternoons when I was up in the area during these cold winter months, and just kind of basking in the warm vegetal kind of, it's like so in need of that this time of year.
Oh, this winter, anybody who goes in there immediately gets a huge grin on their face.
It's like blissed out, yeah.
Yeah, it's a jungle in there right now.
So, how long have you guys been farming?
We bought this farm in 1983, the winter of '83. So it's coming up on 30 years.
Wow. And you guys are certified organic, right?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, we were. I don't know. It doesn't seem like it, but people look at us and consider us pioneers. But at the time, we were one of I think we came in the third or fourth year of the certification program, and we were one of 30 or 40 farms. But there's hundreds of us now. So.
Oh wow! So you guys were in there like when they were essentially working out what it meant to be certified organic.
Very much so, yeah.
And has that process changed? I mean, is it like other certification processes where you guys are kind of grandfathered in, or do you have to reapply on an annual basis? What does that look like?
Oh no grandfathering in. No, nothing like that. Yeah, no, we don't have a farmers union or anything like that. No, it has changed. It started out being where the advocacy organization, which was NOFA New York, which is kind of a pan-New England organization as well, but the advocacy organization was also doing the certification, and that has changed, and now the certification agency is a separate entity, and everything's under the federal jurisdiction now. About 10 years ago, it went federal, so that the Department of Agriculture oversees a nationwide standardized set of certification.
And was
rules.
that change was prompted because so much food was moving across state lines, or because like in an effort to streamline it from state to state, or why did they make that change to a federal system?
Well, it's kind of a truth in advertising kind of deal where it wasn't clear. There were different agencies with different rules. Different certifying groups had different rules, and the word organic could be co-opted, in the marketplace pretty much any which way but loose. And so the idea was to get a single standard for the term organic, and now you cannot say that your products are organic unless you meet the USDA requirements.
And is that an annual inspection of your property, or how do they kind of ensure that you're doing kind of what you say you're doing?
Yeah, the inspection is a big component. There's a lot of paper trails, that we have to keep up with, and the inspection is I guess it's probably 50% of the where about 50% of the paperwork gets looked over. But our food has to be traceable from the field, and a lot of record keeping. I think record keeping is a big part of it.
And why? I know some farmers that we've talked to, especially kind of on the scale that you guys are producing, have mixed feelings about kind of going through the administrative hassle of undergoing the certification process. What makes it worth it for you guys?
A big part of it is that at least a third of our marketing is wholesaling, and when you're wholesaling, you don't have a personal relationship with your customers, and so you have to be able to simply flash your ID and have people have confidence in you in the marketplace. So wholesalers who want to be organic pretty much have to be certified. A lot of farmers who just retail can develop just a trusting face-to-face relationship with their customers, whether it's through CSA or right at a farmer's market. But when you're wholesaling, you have to be certified.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about what you guys are growing. Like what does well in the winter months for you guys?
In the winter, in our high tunnels, we grow a lot of greens. The products that we have for sale coming out of the high tunnels are baby spinach, arugula, and a spicy mesclun and a mild mesclun. And those are all composed of spinach and arugula, obviously, or spinach and arugula. But the mixes are all a mix of Asian greens, cold hardy Asian greens. And these are greens that can take some cold and can take low light levels. So there's no lettuce in any of the mixes, and baby bok choy is kind of the base of both mixes. bok choy. It's cut when it's quite small, and then there's tatsoi and Mizuna and some various kinds of mustard, some frilly mustards and some red mustards. And, there's probably about 20 different kind of Asian greens that we use to make our mixes.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. Where are you guys getting your seed stock from?
Our seeds come from Johnny's in Maine and from High Mowing Seeds up in Vermont. One of the things that's really that really drives where we source our seeds are the certification standards, which now require us to source organic seed wherever we can. So that's changed who we buy our seed from. And High Mowing has kind of sprung up to meet the needs for organic growers. They specialize in organic seed. I think they're all organic.
Oh, wow. So that's a new thing. Like, you didn't have to grow from organic seed to be certified. The seed stock and the growing practices were separate, but now... Yeah.
Well, the seeds is a pretty, as far as the relative weight of the seed versus the product, you're looking at a ratio of maybe, 1 to 10,000 or something. So, pretty much our whole farm's production can come in the spring in a small cardboard box. So it didn't, the fact that the seed's not grown organically never really bothered me. Mm-hmm. But the idea is to support to create an organic industry
right.
that's fully integrated. And so in the long run, it's a good idea. In the short run, it seemed like a big pain in the neck and quite an expense.
What can you give us an idea of the cost difference?
Oh, it depends. It can be the same. It can vary anywhere from the same to 10 times as much.
Okay. Yeah. And has that changed at all, what you guys have decided to grow based on the seed costs, or you pretty much just eat it?
No, your seed costs are fairly low percentage of your overhead, so we don't sweat that too much.
Awesome. So can you take us through a little bit, kind of a overview of a year in the life of a vegetable grower in the Northeast, and how you guys kind of plan out the seasons and kind of what you're doing now and what you're looking forward to coming up in the spring?
Yeah, right now there's a lot of paperwork. Ordering the seeds took a couple weeks because a small farm like ours, where you have a large variety, there must be 150 different kinds of seeds we order.
Wow. Is it kind of like Christmas shopping? You get excited looking at the catalog, that one.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes it's Christmas shopping. Sometimes it's a little frustrating because your favorite variety may not be available, and you have to try new things. And of course, excuse me, to try new things can take a whole season.
Right.
To plant and try it out, and so you can, if a favorite variety disappears, you can lose a season of production while you do different trials and find something new. But yeah, it's not bad. And then we're also going over our seeding charts. We have everything's on the computer, so we tweak our seeding charts based on last year's production, how things went, and very shortly we'll be firing up the propagation house and starting to mix soil and plant flats.
What's a propagation house?
It's a small greenhouse, and it would be on a farm like ours. It's our highest high tech greenhouse where the climate is most precisely controlled, and that's where we start our plants.
Okay.
And that's in most farms. That's a separate greenhouse from a production greenhouse where you're growing things for sale.
Okay, and that's just because when at that stage in the plant's life, they just need a little more TLC, like a baby, right? I mean,
yeah, and also in this New England climate, to get things going, you're tending to start things during the colder time of year.
Okay.
So you need a nice warm place, a nice tight house with, and we use heated benches and so the plants are growing on a warm bench, and then the air is also controlled, and you have to have ventilation so when the sun comes out, keep the house from getting too warm and keep it from getting too cold at night. So there's the prop house. And then usually around April 1st, in this part of New England, is when the drier fields can be worked up. And we finish spreading any compost that we haven't spread in the fall, and ground ready, cleaning up anything that needs cleaning up from the fall. And all of our fields are seeded down to cover crops, and so we start we start managing the cover crops, either mowing them or tilling them in to get ready for planting.
So the cover crops are crops that you planted in the fall, or they're crops that you plant in the spring?
Yes to both.
Okay.
Some of the cover crops are sown simultaneously with the growth of, are sown under a crop that's growing for market.
Mm-hmm.
And so, for example, under our winter squash, we sow red clover, and when the squash is done, the red clover is all shaded and very small while the crop's growing. But as soon as the crop is done and cleared off, and the frost comes, then the clover starts getting all the sunlight, and that field is nice and green in the spring. And then we can choose whether to till that right in, or maybe just let the clover grow until we need it. Our farm uses a lot of succession plantings because one of our big crops is greens, and the greens are only in the field for 4 weeks at a time. So a lot of that ground can grow clover until we need it.
Right. Seth, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll come back and kind of follow up.
Okay.
The following is a public service announcement from Heritage Radio Network. Every Sunday at 3:30 p.m., tune in to We Dig Plants with garden designers Carmen DeVito and Alice Marcus Krieg of Groundworks, Inc. The girls delve into our human relationship with plants as food, medicine, fodder, and a source of beauty and inspiration. They bring the culture to horticulture and discuss such topics as botany how-to, cultivation, horticultural history, garden design trends, and all things generally budding. Again, that's every Sunday at 3:30 p.m. on the Heritage Radio Network.
All right, welcome back. You are tuned into the Farm Report on the Heritage Radio Network. We are on the line with Seth Jacobs of Slack Hollow Farm in Argyle, New York. Before the break, Seth was kind of taking us through a year in the life of a organic vegetable producer, and we were talking about cover crops. So let's pick up where we left off, Seth.
Yeah. Well, the cover crops are used to build the soil when you're not growing a crop. In between when you're using the ground for crops, or simultaneously. Oftentimes we have the cover crop in while the crop is growing. But basically you're harvesting. You want to harvest sunlight and retain as many nutrients as you can when you're not using the ground. Bare ground is a pretty unnatural thing, and you can harvest a lot of your fertility and a lot of the energy you need to build your soil by using cover crops.
And that's kind of, that model of farming, the idea that you can just plant the same thing in the same spot year after year after year. I think that the idea that like soil is something that you need to take care of is like not always totally clear. So the cover crops and like the rotation of crops is essentially what you're doing to make sure that the production of your food will stay consistent from year to year, so that you're like can stay on the same land. I mean, it's just a way to kind of take care of the health of your farm overall, or.
Definitely. I mean, the creed for sustainable agriculture is a healthy soil will grow a healthy crop, and we don't. Organic farmers don't have access to the kind of really concentrated fertilizer in a bag that a conventional farmer does, and the inputs. If you were to actually purchase all your fertility and all your organic matter for organic farming, the cost would just be so high. So we do what has been done for the majority of human history, which is try and grow as much of your fertility on site as you can. And so we're not. This is nothing new. This is the way it's always been done.
And how did you guys? I mean, do you or Martha come from a farming background? How did you kind of know what to do?
Oh, we had no idea what to do. We learned it all the hard way.
And I mean, you guys have been on the farm, you said, for almost 30 years. Has that been the full-time gig for both of you?
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome.
So we learned a lot of lessons the hard way in the beginning, which is one way to go about it, because when you do learn things the hard way, you really learn them. But it might have been smarter had we worked on 3 or 4 farms for a few years before we started on our own. But that's all water under the bridge.
Exactly. Okay, so it's spring. So you've got some cover crops growing. What else is happening?
Well, the greenhouse is getting really full, and we get out the transplanter, which is a machine which 2 people sit on, 1 person drives behind the tractor, and the fields start filling up with transplants, and we start direct seeding some of the crops, and things go into high gear, and we get into on our farm, we're in a cycle of every week we are seeding in the greenhouse, transplanting from the greenhouse, and seeding in the fields. Our crops are pretty quick succession crops, a lot of them, anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks in the field. So we're planting every week and transplanting every week and harvesting every week. And the emphasis on our table at the farmers market is to have the same crops in the spring and the summer and the fall. So you can get the same head of lettuce, the same bunch of beets, and the same bunch of cilantro for the full season. But to do that, we have to plant every week in order to have fresh things to harvest every week. So the summer's just a blur of soil prep and planting and transplanting and harvesting.
And you guys have some people, you have like a crew who comes, or what's the staffing look like?
We have 2 people on all winter helping us with the greenhouses, and 4 people all summer.
Awesome. All right, so then in the fall, starts to get cold, markets start slowing down. I mean, the Troy market goes year-round, right?
Yep, most of the markets go year-round now.
That's great. And you guys go to market year-round?
Yep.
And you're doing wholesale year-round?
When we have it, yeah.
Okay.
The wholesale tends to drop off after about December 1st. And then we just are retailing the greens in the winter. And we can retail a lot more greens in the winter than we can in the summer. And because there's not the oversupply.
Okay, this is like not as many people are growing them, so
yeah. In fact, very very few are. Yeah. And so in the fall we have some big crops to get in. Some things we do on a wholesale level: winter squash, onions, and get all the crops root cellared that we sell along with the greens in the winter, which are carrots, beets, shallots, the winter squash, and the onions.
Can you talk a little bit about how? So you're saying root cellar, but where are the vegetables exactly? Like, what happens to them so that they can kind of stay in good condition throughout the winter months?
Well, to keep them in good condition, they just need still air and high humidity, and as close to 32, but not below, as possible. And we just use our walk-in cooler, which is a truck body that was a refrigeration unit on the back of a truck, and that sits on the ground. And we just put a little heater in it instead of running the cooling system as we do in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
So on a little farm like ours, it's nice when things can serve two purposes,
Absolutely.
at least two purposes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So well, I call it the root cellar, but it actually sits above ground. But it does just great. Our carrots and beets store just fine. And then we have some warm storage in an insulated area for the drier things like the squash and onions.
Okay. Jack and I, the producer of the show, were talking a little bit about the last time I think it was up at your farm when we did some carrot surfing. Can you talk a little bit about, your equipment needs and kind of what you guys have done to both design things for yourself and kind of how getting kind of the tools you need on the farm works?
Yeah. Well, the carrot digger you're talking about, that is a single-purpose tool. It's just for digging roots, and we had that built. It's just a blade that at an angle that drags behind the tractor and kind of sends a shock wave through the soil and lifts everything up. And the way we learned about equipment was by working with other farmers and visiting lots of other vegetable farms to see what's available. And there's plenty of equipment out there for all scales of farming. And most tools, you can buy them big or you can buy them small, the same tool depending on your scale. And we have a designated cultivating tractor, but that's set up because we grow so many different crops. All our beds are set up in the same way, so the one tractor can cultivate all the different crops we grow.
Okay, and so how do you, thinking about equipment needs, and then you talked a little bit about, compost and other fertilizer needs, like how does Slack Hollow fit into kind of the agriculture community up in Washington County? What role do you guys play as far as supporting kind of the infrastructure of the community, or what do you kind of depend on other farms for? What's the interplay look like?
Well, we're really lucky, and one of the reasons we chose to farm in Washington County is it's a very strong farming community because the soils are so good throughout the county. There's a lot of farms around, and that means there's a lot of farm services. So we have a lot of dealerships, a lot of repair people. So we have good support, and then there's a lot of livestock around here, many cows, many horses, and so we use a lot of manure from cow and horse operations to keep up the fertility of our ground. So we ship in a lot of cow manure and horse manure and compost it before we apply it to the soil. So vegetables work very well when you're surrounded by livestock.
Yeah, kind of the classic mode.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about, having been on the same piece of land for a couple of decades and farming, like, have you noticed from a climate perspective, any kind of shifts or anything over the last, 5 years or so that seems different? It's a topic of conversation that people bring up, like the impact of agriculture on climate or the impact of climate on agriculture. And I'm just wondering from a on the ground perspective, what you've been observing.
Yeah. Well, 5 years is too short a time to see trends.
Okay.
And it's not immediately clear. I'm certainly not in denial about the the measurements that are taken around the globe and what's going on. We've had a number of pretty easy winters, and frost dates are definitely getting pushed back in the spring. Earlier in the spring, last frost date, and first frost date has definitely moved back in the fall since we've been here. But on the other hand, this winter is kicking everybody's butt up here.
Yeah.
It is cold. That doesn't mean, that doesn't point towards a global trend by any means. And if you talk to the old-timers, they'll tell you, it's just real hard to tell. The 60s were real hot, and, the 50s were really cold, and, the 70s were really wet, and so on. And so it's very hard at the local level to really see a major trend. But you can't argue with the carbon dioxide levels in the atmosphere. But it's really hard. for me to say I see what's going on would be like Rush Limbaugh saying when it snows in D.C. that Al Gore's all wrong. It wouldn't make any sense.
I would never compare you to Rush Limbaugh, just for the record. What's going on with maple syrup up there? Do you guys do any tapping or?
We don't, but pretty much everybody got their taps in. Everybody's out on snowshoes tapping now, and because they want to be ready. It may have run one day so far, but we had one day in the 50s. But so far, it's been too cold. We're not getting the days above freezing yet.
Okay.
And that's one thing. That's what I mean. Usually the sap's running by now.
Right. That's what I thought.
But you never know when the main part of the season's going to be. Sometimes it's in early February. Sometimes it doesn't come till March, and it's definitely holding off this year.
Awesome. Well, Seth, thanks so much for taking some time out of your day to chat with us a little bit. We would love, of course, to have you on the show again to talk a little bit more about what's going on when the season gets into swing. If people want to learn more about your farm, they can check out your website, www.slackhollowfarm.com. And if they're interested in coming up to visit, or are you looking to hire right now? Anything else like we should kind of put the word out for?
Yeah, we need it. We're looking for another person for the summer, yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And they can contact you through the website, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, and I will be in touch soon. I got to plan my maple syrup trip.
Okay. Thanks, Aaron.
Thanks, Seth. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to this program on the Heritage Radio Network. You can find all of our archived programs on heritageradionetwork.com, as well as a schedule of upcoming live shows. You can also podcast all of our programs on iTunes by searching Heritage Radio Network in the iTunes Store. You can find us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter for up-to-date news and information. Thanks for listening. The following is a public service announcement from the Museum of Food and Drink. Dave Arnold and Patrick Martins have gathered a team of New York's most innovative chefs and bartenders to create a 9-course fundraiser lunch at Del Posto, Sunday, March 27th. Their intent? To kickstart the greatest food museum in the world. The menu for this unprecedented event is derived from educational themes of the museum. Chefs will draw inspiration from sources outside their normal sphere. How will a cutting-edge chef handle the Paleolithic, or a dish only using pre-Columbian ingredients? What will a modern Italian chef do with ancient Rome? The chefs include David Chang of Momofuku, Wiley Dufresne of WD-50, Mark Ladner of Del Posto, Nils Noren of the French Culinary Institute, Cesare Casella of Salumeria Rossi, Carlo Maracci of Roberta's, Brooks Headley of Del Posto, and Christina Tosi of Momofuku Milk Bar. Bartenders include Audrey Sanders of Pegu Club, Thomas Waugh of Death & Company, Simon Ford of Pernod Ricard, Damon Bolte of Prime Meats, and Eben Clem of Be Our Guest Restaurants. Proceeds from the event will directly support the Museum of Food and Drink. Tickets are very limited and $250 per person. To purchase tickets, please visit mofad.eventbrite.com. That's mofad.eventbrite.com. Once again, mofad.eventbrite.com. Sponsored by Pernod Ricard, Heritage Foods USA, Pat LaFrida Meats, Barterhouse Wines, Del Posto Restaurant.
Well, I think part of the sourcing process to me is the most exciting because you rent a car and you drive through the south of France and you obviously have some appointments set up, but some of the most exciting things happen when you're just kind of winging it. And you meet a farmer at a wine fair, and he says, "Well, come back to my estate," and you're not quite sure where you're going, and you follow a guy in a Peugeot, up a rambling hill, and all of a sudden you come across either a castle or like a shack in the woods, and the guy's making wine out of the back of his house, or he could be making wine out of a major estate. Looks are deceiving, but you want to assume that someone with a very established chateau is making good wine, but 9 times out of 10, the guy out of the garage who's like super passionate is making these better wines, and they're maybe more rustic and less polished. So to me, like the restaurateur, the sommelier, this story resonates with them about the small farmer, the guy who's making wine on small quantities, 80 cases, 100 cases. Those are the things exciting to Barterhouse, and hopefully the things exciting to our clients.